How's it going, everyone? Today, I decided to bring on my wife, Olivia Samuel.
Hi.
And today, I just wanted to or with this video, I kind of wanted to just talk about my incident through her perspective. Because, like I said on the last video, I don't remember much at all. Just what other people told me. And I know my wife had experienced probably most of the entire situation, just for some of the things that she was doing behind the scenes. But yeah, so again, like I said, my wife, and yeah, just I guess tell everyone like what your perspective was when on March 1st.
Yeah. Well, I got the call from his brother, Jordan, and I didn't really know what was going on. I just got a phone call, and he told me that Darshay had collapsed at the basketball game. And all I remember was just jumping up, and I threw on some clothes. I told my mom where I was going. I grabbed my keys, and then I was about to drive all the way up to Port Orchard. And then in the process, I was calling his brother and then calling his friend Stefan. And as I was getting on the freeway, I had got a call, I think it was from Stefan, and they were transporting him to Tacoma General, which wasn't really far from where we were staying at the time. So I switched my direction a little bit and took off to TG. In the process, I was like calling people. I updated my mom, and I just asked her to tell my sisters and my dad. I called one of our pastors, and just trying to get the word out to people, as really our close family, as much as possible. So his brother took care of Darshay's side of the family, which was really helpful for me. And then when I got to the hospital, I didn't have a lot of information. I just knew that he was going to be transferred there. So I checked in, and of course, we just played the waiting game. His mom showed up, and then she was able to sit with me. Because of COVID, you can really have a lot of people in the hospital. But thankfully, they did let his mom go with me, so I didn't have to be by myself. And then after that, Darshay finally made it to the hospital, and then they were like, hey, we're going to have a social worker come out and talk to you guys. And, I've been in social work before, and we don't have any children yet, so I was just a little bit confused, like, as to why they, were going to have the social worker come talk to us. So they brought us to the back room, and I've seen Grey's Anatomy before, and I've also been on the show, so I totally know that I was like, this is not a good thing. They're taking us to the back room to have a private conversation, and to my knowledge, all I knew was Darshay had collapsed, and they had performed CPR. That was just about all the information that I had. And then the doctor came in, and she basically just told us that he had a heart arrhythmia, and that his heart was beating irregularly. And I don't really actually remember the conversation with the doctor. I think I was just in shock when they brought in this doctor who was like talking about your heart, because it's like, Darshay doesn't have heart problems that we know of. So in those moments when you're trying to process that your loved one is suffering or is hurting, you kind of you compartmentalize things differently. And it was almost like it's kind of like in the movies where your hearing kind of goes inward and you just kind of phase everything out. It was kind of like being underwater listening to her talk, because I couldn't really process all of that. Finally, after hours of waiting, they finally let us, me and his mom, go back and see him. And so before we got there, she was walking with us, and she prepped us, and she said, just to give you a heads up, it is really hard to see your loved one with tubes and wires. And in that moment, I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that this was really serious. So I went into the hospital, and you were all, you had all your IVs. He was on a ventilator. And I just remember in that moment before I walked in the room, I just froze, because I didn't think I could just have the courage to go in that room. I've never seen Darshay like that before. I've never had to see any of my close family members like that. So I just froze. And I mean, with God's strength, I was able to go in that room and see him. And man, it was really hard. I wanted to fall apart in that hospital room. But you know, God was giving me strength to just be there. When he was laying there on the bed, he was jolting a lot. And I think what it was is his brain was like firing off signals to his body to respond. And yeah, so that was hard because he literally looked like he wanted to get out of that hospital bed. Like he was trying to pull off his wires, so they had to tie his hands down to the bed, which was also scary. But his eyes were closed. He was definitely like not conscious, but his eyes were like halfway open and they were really red. And when I was standing next to him, I was, holding his hand, and whispering to him. And the nurse was telling me that, he can hear you. And so when he would have those moments where he was like jolting, I had to whisper to him and, calm him down. And I just think that was one of the hardest things I probably had to ever do. He did hear me though, which was really comforting. I was able to calm him down. It was almost as if he was definitely crying. Because there were just random tears that would like fall down his eyes, and his eyes would kind of pull up with a lot of water. You could just tell by his body movements that, you were really scared. And it was like he was there, but he wasn't. It was just like he was far away. So we stayed for a few hours, and I kind of went in and out of the room calling, my job, calling my family, and just updating everybody. And then the hard part was when we had to say goodbye because they were moving him to the ICU. And once you go into the ICU during COVID, you don't get to go up there and visit. So the next time I would see him is, if he makes it out of the hospital, that was kind of my present reality because I didn't know what his condition was going to be. They were also prepping him to put him into a coma so that his body didn't have to work as hard to try to stay awake and function. When I tell you guys, people all over the coast were praying for, Darshay and myself. That love was truly felt. And God really did hear our prayers because Darshay, even though he was, by himself and he was in a coma, he was progressing and healing much faster than they had anticipated. And Darshay's doctors and nurses were so amazing. And I also have to shout out Rob specifically because even though I couldn't go up and see him, he let me FaceTime him on his personal cell phone. So I got to see Darshay and just talk to him, and we were on the phone at least for like 30 minutes. He wasn't awake, but just to be able to talk to your loved ones. I took a death and dying class during my undergrad years, and they said that, loved ones that are in a coma can hear you. So I thought it was important for me to just talk to Darshay like it was a normal day. Just talking to him about my day and things that I've been feeling. So that really helped me during my grieving process. I definitely had a lot of therapy that week. I think I had like 2 or 3 therapy calls in that first week. So I definitely didn't sleep I think I was up for almost 2 days when he was admitted. I just couldn't sleep. I was just too wound up.
There's a picture of you and your sisters, I think.
Yeah,
so
my mom took a picture of me and my sisters. The 4 of us, we were just all passed out on the couch, and baby Khalil was on the ground sleeping. That just kind of explained the day that we had. It was just really tough. But yeah, fast forward. I remember the first day Darshay called me, so they were like, he's awake, you can call him. And when Darshay was awake, so when you come off of sedation, you're pretty loopy, and it was really precious. Yeah, he was really loopy. He kind of, even his voice sounded different. And once they take the tubes out of your mouth, they irritate your throat. But his voice wasn't raspy yet. He just sounded like he was like 10 years old talking to me. It was just really precious. He was definitely like so confused and didn't know like how he got there.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said on the last video, like I went to bed on a Sunday,
Yeah.
and the next thing I know, like I wake up in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I told you there was a moment where like I woke up and I thought, for some reason, I thought an actor was one of my nurses from a TV show I watched, Marvel TV show. And I was like, was so and so my was he my nurse? But yeah, it was. Yeah, I was really confused and,
Yeah.
like she said, loopy.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like the experience was way more traumatizing to her
Yeah.
versus how it was for me. Just because, like I said, I don't.
Yeah.
So nothing. I don't really. I don't.
He doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, I don't think anything really triggers me.
No.
Or like a post,
Yeah.
traumatic, kind of response. But
No.
if anything, like she'll have the kind of the post traumatic. We'll watch a TV show.
Yeah.
It could be a hospital scene. It could be a
Mhm.
scene where someone's,
Yeah.
being rushed to the hospital, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And from time to time, like she'll get emotional.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh yeah, like she experienced that, like, and I was
Yeah.
practically asleep.
Yeah.
The entire time. So
Yeah. Well, and that's the part that this was new for me, is just the emotions that came with it. I mean, I cycled through so many emotions. I was angry, I was hurt, I was sad. I, had moments where I would smile, like I would watch his videos. We don't go a day without talking to each other, especially when we were in our courtship. We were long distance. So we talked every single day, even if it was just for, 2 minutes. So this was really weird for me to not hear his voice for 5-6 days. Yeah. So I would just kind of play back his videos. But emotionally, everything was moving so fast, I didn't really have time to grieve because, okay, he's in the hospital. I was still working because I didn't have a lot of time off because of the jobs that I have. So I'm also, I was also thinking okay, what kind of hospital bills are we going to have? I don't know if our insurance is going to cover everything. So my role shifted and my mind was going in 8 million different directions. So I didn't really have enough time to grieve. I think a month later, I finally was grieving because it was he's in the hospital and then he's getting out and then we moved in the middle of his recovery. It just, everything kind of worked out the way that it needed to. But emotionally, I was a month later, I was where I was emotionally on the first day that he was admitted. Even though I had been sleeping next to him every single night after he got home, I just still, it didn't really feel all that real. But yeah, you definitely go through a series of intense emotions and they're all centered around grieving. Even though he, thankfully, God kept him here, I was still grieving as if, he had passed. There's just a lot of weird emotions, not maybe weird, but just different emotions I never thought I would experience. When I was gonna talk to him for the first time, I was afraid, is he gonna love me the same? Is he even gonna remember how he loves me? And I was just psyching myself up, and I was I'll just be, open to anything. He may not remember if he has a wife. Well, we'll see. But yeah, just the emotions. One thing that kept me encouraged too was even in the midst of my hurt, God was still listening and God was speaking to me and he was doing everything he could to encourage me through other people. We had people who had prophetic dreams about Darshay. People seeing, Darshay with God. Not that it was a sign of, Darshay is going to die, but just that God has him and he is in great hands. So spiritually, that definitely kept me encouraged because when you're going through things, so in those moments, it was hard to pray. I remember calling my pastor and I was what do I do? Do I just keep praying? Do I just sit and wait? I don't know what to do. I feel there's only so much I can say to God, and God hears your tears for sure, and he hears your silence. So I'm just thankful that even though this was such a challenging season for us, I mean, we weren't even a year into our marriage. It'll be a year in a few weeks, but we weren't even a year in, and we had to suffer something that people who are married, they don't go through that stuff until they're in their 40s or 50s and older. So this was definitely it was a test, and it was so unexpected. But We're just really thankful to God. I'm thankful to God for bringing Darshay through. And just, it made us appreciate life so much more, and we look at life differently, so if you have loved ones out there maybe that you don't get along with, or you have a difficult relationship with, just pray and ask God to give you guidance on how to navigate with forgiveness, because life is too short and you never know when your last moments are going to be. And enjoy those moments you have together. You don't need a lot of things if you're newly married, or maybe financially you feel like you're not where you'd like to be in your marriage. Enjoy those little moments. I think those moments are the ones that we remember the most, because they're just so special. So we're just thankful just to be in this space. And we thank all of our loved ones and family members and friends, people who were just praying for us and pouring into us in so many ways. Please know from the bottom of our heart and our hearts, we are so grateful for each and every one of you. We couldn't have done any of this without you guys. Yeah,
well, there it is. My wife's perspective on just that entire kind of incident. So, but thank you guys for watching. Thank you for sharing your part of the story, and we'll catch you guys next video.
Bye, guys.
All right, see ya.